In the latest twist of the It Ends With Us saga, a new hit piece has emerged from the New York Times. And if you think this is just standard entertainment reporting, you haven't been paying attention. We're diving into the trenches of a narrative war where facts are filtered through PR machines and evidence is often whatever a headline says it is. But why is a legacy newspaper doubling down on a story that the internet seems to have already solved? And more importantly, what was left on the cutting room floor? Grab your coffee, because we're about to peel back the curtain on the media's most calculated move yet. One of the most jarring parts of the recent New York Times coverage involves a specific piece of footage: Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively slow dancing on set. To the average viewer, it looks like two actors doing their jobs, depicting a couple falling in love for a movie montage. However, the Times has reframed this as a litmus test for harassment. Think about that for a second. If you're an actor, your job is to be nuzzly and affectionate when the script calls for it. But the narrative being pushed now suggests that Baldoni's professional performance was actually an unscripted advance. The irony? There is audio. And as Dave Neal points out, the allegations from Lively's camp seem to shift the moment they realized the silent footage actually had a soundtrack. It's like being accused of stealing a cookie, but then the security footage shows the person who complained actually handed it to you. Instead of apologizing, they just say, "Well, you looked like you wanted to steal it." But if the footage doesn't show what they say it shows, why is the media still using it as a weapon? The answer lies in the subtle art of manipulative language, and it gets much darker than a simple dance. Have you ever noticed how the same event can sound like a fairy tale or a horror movie depending on who's telling it? The New York Times is currently a master of this craft. In their latest article, they use phrases like "what rises to harassment" in the same breath as "a relationship that turns violent." By grouping Baldoni's real-life behavior with the fictional domestic violence of the movie's plot, they are subtly, and let's be honest, insidiously, blurring the lines. They want the reader to feel like the darkness of the character, Ryle, seeped into the actor Justin. They even go as far as to call Lively's supporters, while labeling Baldoni's side as defenders. It's a tiny linguistic nudge that suggests one side is standing for a cause, while the other is protecting a criminal. While the Times is busy painting this picture, they managed to leave out some pretty explosive details about what Lively was doing behind the scenes. Ready to hear about the protocols that were conveniently ignored? We live in a post-Me Too world, which is a good thing. Intimacy coordinators are now standard on sets to ensure everyone feels safe. The New York Times loves to bring this up to add gravity to Lively's claims. But there's a massive elephant in the room that they didn't mention. Blake Lively reportedly refused to meet with the intimacy coordinator herself. Even more surprising, evidence suggests Lively was the one improvising kisses, unscripted ones, on Baldoni's lips. If the goal is safety and protocol, why does it only apply when one person does it? It's a relatable challenge we see in everyday life. The rules for thee, but not for me mentality. If a manager at work insists on a no-interruption rule but spends the whole meeting talking over you, you'd be frustrated, right? Now imagine that play out on a global stage with lawyers and federal judges involved. If the evidence of harassment is this shaky, what is the real reason this battle is being fought? Hint: it involves a penthouse, a pop star, and a plan to hijack a movie. The New York Times mentions the sprawling nature of the case, but conveniently skips over the content of these messages because it turns a victim versus predator story into a business power grab story. And let's face it, Business Dispute doesn't sell as many newspapers as Hollywood Scandal. But even with the biggest newspaper in the world in her corner, is the tide starting to turn against Blake? The public has looked at the papers, watched the uncomfortable dance, and for the most part, they've sided with Baldoni. It's a moment of clarity for anyone who feels like they're being gaslit by big institutions. The truth has a funny way of leaking out through the cracks of even the most expensive PR walls. We've looked at the manipulative language, the ignored protocols, and the potential power grab happening behind the scenes. The New York Times might be trying to soften the blow for Blake Lively before the trial starts this spring, but the court of public opinion is already in session. What do you think? Is this a legitimate case of a hostile work environment, or are we watching a masterclass in reputation management gone wrong? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get a conversation going, because in the age of misinformation, your critical thinking is the most powerful tool you own.